Hello, this is F5 Video with Alex, and today we're going to configure secure remote access for your remote colleagues and employees that have to stay at home for some reason, and we will do it through F5 BIG-IP Access Policy Manager technology. The goal for this video is not to provide the explanation of comprehensive use cases. It's more dedicated for general IT specialists rather than F5 technical specialists. What we're going to focus on and what we're going to provide for the client today is the SSL VPN service as BIG-IP SSL VPN concentrator, and this is the most popular technology for remote access. We can simplify the access for and secure access for the web applications that doesn't really require VPN. We can publish them in a secure way through the BIG-IP proxy. BIG-IP can act as the RDP gateway, basically RDP proxy that provide authentication, security, encryption for your RDP connections. And you don't need to expose Windows servers outside. And we'll try to do it as much easy as possible in a shorter time frame. Okay, so this is our goal. Let's move on towards the lab topology. I have BIG-IP in AWS, and the rest of my servers are also there. I have two VLANs, external and internal one. External one is basically exposed with BIG-IP IP addresses, knotted to some public IP addresses for my access. And I have free servers. The internal page is very dummy default web page actually for the servers that we will assume as an internal web page that doesn't have authentication, session management, so on, and need to be published outside. We have the domain controller for domain f5demo.com to provide authentication services for us, because we need to have a user authenticated, right, from some real repository, and we will have we actually have the RDP remote desktop services server that is providing us remote sessions. That's it. Let's move on with configuration. And first of all, as you can see on my task list, I have task on onboarding the BIG-IP. What does it really mean and why it's important? Because I assume that you have the absolutely clean, so you have a, for example, greenfield deployment for the BIG-IP, and then you need to provide a basic configuration. And this is a kind of quite a bunch of tasks that need to be done. You need to create VLANs, self IPs, virtual server license, virtual server is not necessary, but license and DNS configuration, NTP configuration. This is possible. The things that are really mandatory here, and what we can do, we can use declarative onboarding that allow us to do it all at once. First of all, to do that, we need to obtain authentication token that we will use for our declarative call, and call is right over here. So it's single JSON bulb that's providing us the license for the BIG-IP, DNS configuration, NTP configuration, authentication, and what is important for us, networking parameters. We hitting send for this, and what we see that result is code 202. That means that task is accepted and status is running. Doing get requests with parameter show full basically will create us a result for this task. It's still running because it's need to apply license, change the authentication policies, and so on. So it's pretty much that we need that's required to be done. So we have to have some patience here, but we're doing nothing. We just waiting, and that's it. You can copy paste the default template for the declarative onboarding right from the F5 website. And task is finished with success result. We can go back to our BIG-IP. We have to relog in. It's newly onboarded system that now has at least networking addresses and some basic things that we need to do. So let's move on towards SSL VPN configuration. First of all, we need to create the pool of addresses for your clients. As in my topology, I have only one IP address and only one client. So for me, it's enough. You can provide wider pool for sure. So IP addresses that we need to be done. So we put this, then we can move on to the so-called network access resource. It's basically VPN settings for your connection. So it will appear on some kind of web portal. I'll show you it later. So it should be some kind of name that is recognizable for the users. So like VPN to a firm, finished. Then we have some network settings. Here I have my list pool. I'd like to have local access to the subnet, and I would like to have a split access. I don't want to see the all internet traffic for myself through the BIG-IP actually. So I will do only lab traffic passing through the VPN, and this is it for me. You can define and enforce DNS and the host file, some network drives to the users, then you starting the VPN, and they will be forced and connected automatically on the user side. That's it here, and we done with this part so far. One mandatory step that's need to be done is a so-called connectivity profile that is defining connectivity settings for the tunnel. The default one is not okay, but we need to create a new one, but it's really okay. But it's really easy. Just put the parent in and let's make a name like remote connectivity, okay? And we can click save, and this is all what is required to be done. Next is webtop. So as we connecting through the HTTPS towards for authentication, we will see the web page that we need to enter our credentials, so need to read the credentials from the BIG-IP. So we need to have some kind of the portal that is hosted on BIG-IP. This instance is called webtop in a 5 terms. So the one is full is just fine. Then we need to create authentication through our Active Directory. So Active Directory authentication, domain name, domain controller, we will connect directly just via IP address. And this is it. You don't need admin credentials for authentication. You need it just for the query. And we're done with this part. And now we need to create access policy itself. So remote access, let's call it like this. Type all is just fine here, and don't forget to add some language. It is mandatory settings. That's it. Now we can click edit and go to the probably most recognizable part of BIG-IP access policy manager. It's visual policy editor. We can click allow for the endings. We can define the login page to grab the credentials. So I have to type them in. Default settings are fine. Just if in case of UPN, BIG-IP can automatically split domain name and put it in a domain variable. It's always nice to have settings. Then authentication itself, we need to authenticate gathered credentials against Active Directory. This way, and we close to the end. What is missing? We just need to assign all the resources in case of successful authentication. So if the authentication is successful, we need to add this portal and that VPN settings in case if user would like to move on with the VPN, right? That's it. Now we need to configure networking part. Let's start with SSL connection. Even in this particular lab, my laptop will not trust the certificate that I'm going to present. It still makes sense to have the valid certificate even you're trying to set up as fast as possible remote access that your user should really trust. Then we will create so-called virtual service, that is basically ingress point for your connection. So for me, the correct network address translation from the AWS in on address 10.100 port 443. This is HTTPS and has my certificate over here. And we need to put rewrite profile for the next setting, just not to go back here. It's not really required for VPN, and these two guys are required for VPN, actually, that ones we create. That's it. Besides the lots of settings here, this is it you need to do at this very point. Okay, so we are done with VPN server configuration, and this is time to try this in action. So we go into remote F5 demo. We have the login page that we configured, user and the password, and I see the web top with the link or button to the VPN. If I click, it's fire so-called clientless VPN. Some components need to be installed with administrative mode, and certificate is not really trusted. That's why it's asking questions, but then it's going to be connected to my internal network. And I can type in some internal address to see this dummy page, but it's really a page that is hosted there, and we basically inside the VPC of AWS. That is quite interesting, I suppose. You can also use the H client or F5 access to access directly this remote f5demo.com or your domain name. It still will work with the same conditions. So we have the flexibility for the user. User can change the type of the client they would like to have, or you can define the type of the client. Okay, so we can hit disconnect here and try to reload page. It should not really work. You see that it's pending and site cannot be reached. Nice. Let's move on and try to have this very page, but access on a secure way. So I mean with authentication session and through the session management, through our proxy, and without any VPN connection. So how F5 is approaching to this? There is a so-called portal access resource. That's very similar that we need to do for the VPN, but in internal page we will call this, and we need just provide the internal link for this application. That's it. Okay, it should not be any space here. Okay, and our page is created. Then we need to go back to access policy and add this resource to our portal access, to our web top. Okay. Then we need to apply the policy. You can do it right in the Visual Policy Editor, or we can do it right over here. And now we can try to access this application. Once again, this web page for remote access. Now we see the two links, two buttons with internal page. Let's try to click this one, and we see that it's actually now accessed through the BIG-IP. Each and every link is and the content is rewritten to access through the BIG-IP. So, for example, we can take nginx log here, and we see that it's remote f5demo.com as address. So everything is passing through the BIG-IP inside this very session, and with potentially secure connection if the certificate would be trusted. So this is the way we recommend to access to the web applications, and doesn't really require any VPN, but it still requires strong notification, because you can add some multi-factor authentications group policies to your access policy. Nice. And finally, let's move on to the third part of our demo. It's remote desktop proxy. We need to have some preparation. BIG-IP will have to authenticate users to the domain. For RDP, it's work only through NTLM. So we need to have NTLM account. We need to have the full name of the controller, how AWS created it for me, and some user with admin rights is just fine. Then we can create NTLM account profile. This instance is also required. We can use our domain and our account. That's it. Now we can go to the part that create a lot for us automatically again, not through the declarative API, through the way the F5 has long time ago. It's called IOPS. We have IOP template for remote access session. You can use just the latest version you found on the F5 download site. So we RDP proxy as a name. Yes, we would like to have RDP proxy, and configure parameters that is basically clear for the most of the administrators or Microsoft administrator. So we create authentication, provide the domain name, anonymous binding is allowed, the ping is just enough for the check, and TLM account is created before, and we do need a NAT. This is what it's all about. We do have our certificate, and we can provide the name of the virtual server, so ingress point for these connections. It's important from the networking part, and we can allow any host to connect. That's it. And you can see now how many configuration instances this template is going to actually create. That's awesome that we can bypass it to do manually, but we still need to add few things. One is our RDP resources itself. We need to create a couple of them. So first of all, RDP host, that we will use RDP as a protocol. We need just a session host, very traditional one, through the IP address, but we need the SSO. So we need a single connection. I don't need to retype my credentials to access these hosts. That's it. If you have some remote desktop sessions published, that's called RDS apps, and I do have on a very same website, on the very same server, sorry. So you need to provide a remote desktop web access and just click SSO, that's it, finished. Ta-da! And we need to modify the policy itself, the one that is directly linked to the virtual server that's been created. Why? The one is the technical one to provide RDP gateway proxy. So we can click edit here for the visual policy editor, and this is the policy created for the native client. Let's enhance it with the web possibilities, so we can login page. Now we can enhance it with one more thing, like selection of the domain name, so users should not really type it if it's required in your domain. So I will do f5demo.com, f5demo.com as text value. Okay. So my page will have a drop-down list with domains. The rest part is the same, Active Directory authentication. We will now have two configurations of authentication for the same server. You can use either one. And now we need to assign our resources with advanced resource assign, the same as we did. And what we're going to do is just assign all the things that we basically have. So we can put even the VPN access and the portal access and our newly created remote desktop connections to our portal. Okay, this is it, almost done, but we need to do a few more things. We need our virtual server to add rewrite profile for the portal access and SSL on the server side for the remote desktop services server. We need to update this. Done. We need to save this. Now check the ending. It should finish with allow. And we right close to the end of this demo. We need just to apply all the policies that could be applied. Okay, and we need to go. I have another hostname, desktop f5demo.com for this. So it's a new virtual server, new name. So I have a drop-down list with only one value, login, and what we're going to see is that apps is translated to all the services published. It's a few applications from the Windows side, and RDP host is published here. As an example, we can use the Windows calculator that is going to be fired from my Mac. I can just click it over here. The native client is going to be open. The certificate is not trusted. It is beneficial for us. I see the desktop f5demo.com. So we're going through the BIG-IP and not through the server directly. So its connection is encrypted and authenticated through the BIG-IP. And we see, voila, Windows application hosted right over my Mac. That is totally fine. Even calculating something. This is pretty much it. We close to the end. As a conclusion, you can use the BIG-IP as hosting all your remote application. You can modify the look and feel. This is built in out of the box, so you can change the design and the pictures here. You can define the links over the web top per user group or per authentication type of the user and location. And you can start just right from these instructions. That's it. Thank you very much for attention. See you with my next videos. Bye bye.